Hello everyone, my name is Jannelle So and this is So Jannelle. It is nice to be back on TV. Did you imagine that you would reach these heights and achieve all these things?
Huwag na kayo mag-give up. Kahit na anong trabaho pa yan.
It was one of the greatest thrills of my career thus far.
Be loving.
I love that I get to spread joy.
Isang mapagpalayang hapon sa inyong lahat.
Huwag kalimutan kung saan nanggaling.
Never ever compare yourself with others.
We're experiencing a syndemic.
Gone are the days where we can just sit idly and be
Call
quiet.
them our frontliners, but they really are the last line of defense.
We're all exposed.
We are celebrating our 3rd year. Very grateful that you have chosen to spend time with us.
SB19. Catch us on So Jannelle.
Thank you to all of you for joining us.
Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Magandang hapon po sa ating mga kababayan. What a wonderful day. And wonderful because I have been given this chance to be part of a very special show that you have been watching in the last 4 years. So we are celebrating the 4th anniversary of a very, very special show. And today, this afternoon, we speak to, you know, the mind, the heart, the body of the show. And I'm talking about So Jannelle. And right now, I'm doing a conversation with Jannelle So.
Wow, thank you so much. That is so special, being interviewed by no less than the king of talk in the Philippines, one of the hosts that I really look up to, media personality as well. And really one of the pillars of the entertainment industry in the Philippines. So this is such an honor. Thank you for making time.
Thank you, Jannelle. Okay, now let's speak with the good and the not so good things that you went through. What do you know for sure?
There's a lot, okay? There's a lot of things. But I think the thing that I always go back to is, you know, Kuya Boy, being in the media, we are under a lot of scrutiny, right? And especially in the era of social media, where it's so easy to bash behind a name, behind a photo on social media, right? It's easier to be negative than positive, right? So all that stuff, I went through that. Whether in the Philippines, when I was still doing sportscasting, or here with my first show. I actually hosted and produced the first and only daily talk show of the Filipinos in the US.
Kababayan LA.
Yes, I ran that show for 8.5 years until I left to become a mom and raise a family. But going back to the question, really, it's all noise. This I know for sure. Everything else, it's all noise. What's important is you have the love and respect of the people that you love and respect.
You talk about love amidst the noise, and that's lovely. You mentioned public scrutiny because we're public figures. We are broadcast journalists. Alam mo naman sa atin, Jannelle, when you are on cam, when you appear on television, lalo na TV, artista ka. So, you know, you enjoy some amount of fame. Are you comfortable with public scrutiny? Are you comfortable with fame? Are you comfortable with being public?
I am comfortable with media. I am comfortable in front of the camera. But what I'm still trying to learn are the ropes of social media.
Okay.
Right? Because on TV, it's easy, and this was my life. This is our life, right? As media personalities. But social media is very new. In fact, I was just gonna insert an anecdote there. It's so funny because in terms of public scrutiny, even my own mom scrutinizes me. Especially before with Kababayan, she'll call, or one time she called and she said, Jannelle, please call me back. So I called back and I was like, Mom, is anything urgent? What's wrong? Oh, I just want to say that your makeup was too thick on TV today.
But that's a kind of scrutiny that I welcomed when Nanay was still alive. But I get your point. But before you go into social media, alam mo, Jannelle, itong pandemic, I found myself reading a lot of stuff. And I am fascinated with a lot of books on movie stars, actors, and I love watching the old interviews. And I'm talking about Dick Cavett's interview with Katharine Hepburn, with Betty Davis. People are already talking about what is public, what is not public. Katharine Hepburn, not very open to the media, would seldom grant interviews, etc. Until, I came across an interview of Betty Davis with Dick Cavett, where she said that I'd rather be interviewed than do a second-rate movie, because as movie stars, and I'll explain to you why I'm saying this. As movie stars, we cannot tell our whole stories. We need you, interviewers, because you complete our storytelling. Kasi may mga pagkakataon, Jannelle, sa tinagal-tagal ko ring nakikipag-usap at nag-i-interview sa mga celebrities, I would question my validity. I would question my relevance. I would say, am I intruding? Am I encroaching into certain areas that are too private? Only for me to be enlightened by the great Betty Davis that you are part of the storytelling process. You ask the questions because the public of a movie star deserves to know that complete story.
I love that. I love that insight. And if I may add to that, Kuya Boy, this is exactly why also I've been pushing for this show. I'll be honest with you, when I got the opportunity to host and produce that daily talk show for Filipinos, for me at that time, years ago, 2006, it was a gig, right? It was a gig. And then every day that I went on that show and I was highlighting stories, not just of actors and actresses, but Filipino stories, Filipino personalities, that gave me pride in all the stories that we have. And even when I left because selfishly, I wanted to start a family and raise a family. I went back. Kuya Boy, so many people, especially here in LA, they're always wanting to go Hollywood. They're always wanting to go mainstream. And I always say, no, if everybody goes there, who will stay behind to tell, discover, and share the Filipino stories? And who will amplify these Filipino voices? And I think it connects to what you just said. We're here to help tell the stories, but there are so many stories. So adding another layer to that, what kind of stories, whose stories are we telling? And,
That's right.
And for me, it's the Filipinos in America. Those are the stories that we want to share.
Wonderful. Ako naman yung pagdududa lang. I had so many insecurities and so many questions about my job. Kasi there was a time, it became a dubious reputation, Jannelle, that when I would go to a certain area, a certain place in the Philippines or outside of the Philippines, I wouldn't be called my name. Ngayon na lang yun, yung Tito Boy, Kuya Boy, etc. And I'm fine with it. But I used to resent when, instances when, I'd go to a place, I was doing the buzz, for example, and people would shout, susunod, abangan, the buzz, etc. And then it came to a point when I was doing my morning shows, and I would open my morning shows with, kaibigan, tara, usap tayo. I started to do bandila with, ikaw na, etc. So I became known as a blurb. And to be very honest, and I don't talk about this very often, medyo nai-insecure ako. Sabi ko, ano ba to? Ito ba ang pangalan ko? Until I realized, it had to take the great Betty Davis to say that, sometimes you're not even remembered for your name by the character you play, and that's fine because that's part of being being a public persona. I wanted to build on your point about who will tell our story. Well, I totally understand people wanting to break into the mainstream, which is good, but you cannot lose your core. You cannot lose your core. We have to tell the stories of our ancestors and our parents and our grandparents because we have a beautiful story. Kaya thank you for doing Kababayan LA, and thank you for really persevering and being for all the tenacity, for being able to do So Jannelle for 4 years. it's wonderful because someone has got to say, hey, as we explore the story of the world, we have a story. And I am a believer, Jannelle, that you cannot go global if you're not familiar and if you don't embrace your local. Diba? Because that's your brand equity. Tapos, yung social media, this is my question. I'll put it this way. Today, Jannelle, everybody can be anybody. A model, actor, producer, director. I'd like you to comment on, can anyone be a broadcast journalist like you today with everybody's access to social media?
Journalist in the pure description or definition of the word, I don't think so. To be honest, it takes training to be able to gather the facts and put it all in front of you and then compartmentalize and see which perspective you're gonna talk on, right? That's what a journalist does. We tell the stories with facts. But because of social media, everyone can tell a story. That's fine. The danger of social media is not all stories are factual, right? And combine that with this era of instant. We want instant, especially in social media. You want to be able to post it first, right? So it becomes hasty. And the people that are receiving it on the other end, your followers, are seeing something that's hastily put together and incomplete. But they're making judgment on that, based off on that, because that's social media for us. And that's why I think journalists, we still would like to maintain factual storytelling.
I love it when you say facts, and we go for facts. We go for fair stories. I totally get it, and I hope people eavesdropping on this conversation get the whole point, because napakahirap, mga kababayan, malaman kung anong pagkakaiba ng news at hindi news. That's the reason why, and this is not meant to pander to you, Jannelle, you need to watch shows like So Jannelle, because you know that when you put out a story in your show, it had been fact-checked. There was an interview. I'm not even talking about, the merits of production, edits, etc., scoring, and everything that you need to be able to put up a good show. Pero alam mo na hindi ko ilalabas yun, hindi mo ilalabas, Jannelle, sa iyong palabas kung hindi ka nakapag-fact check, kung hindi mo sinigurado na totoo ang pinanggagalingan at marami pang iba.
And that's why I think interviews are very special, because you're getting it from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Right.
It's not hearsay.
Right. To your mind, what makes an excellent, I'll go to the best. What makes an excellent broadcast journalist?
I think it's the skill of listening, right? As broadcast journalists, the fact that we want to tell this particular story or not that, and not that story, there's already some kind of planning involved. I find myself often pivoting in the middle of an interview because I thought I was going to get this story, but then I listened to the answers. That's not the story. So you pivot and you ask questions. You ask different questions, and I think that's what makes us more. That's what makes a valuable and excellent broadcast journalist.
And that's exactly what interviewing is all about. Tayo naman, mga interviewers, we research, we read, we listen, we do pre-interviews, etc., etc. Only for us to find out, to discover that during an interview, during a conversation, ang daming lumalabas. So I totally appreciate what you said. Congratulations, because I know that you put in a lot of hard work, a lot of love, a lot of all of the above to be able to, I know how it is to independently produce a show. Hindi katulad namin yun. Ako, I will admit, Jannelle, I've been spoiled all these years because I go to the studio, I have writers, I have researchers, etc., etc. You do it alone. Not alone, but you're on top of it. And congratulations.
It's tough, Kuya Boy, but it's very It's very rewarding for me as well. And now it's an advocacy of mine. You know why? I'm living in America. I'm a Filipina. I'm married to an English man. And so we have 2 children. Lily is 5, Leo is 2. We're raising biracial children in America. I want my kids growing up listening to these stories. I want my kids being able to access these stories on some of the platforms that we produce.
Love it. You know, there's this beautiful line from Maya Angelou. I come as one, I stand as 10,000. Because when we do this conversation, you're not alone, I'm not alone. We stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. We stand on the shoulders of our parents, the stories of the ancestors of our parents, etc. So thank you for doing what you're doing, because alam ng mga bata na nakaka-proud ang kanilang pinanggagalingan. And by the way, I love the Englishman. That's for later. Okay. Naririnig namin dito sa Pilipinas itong Asian hate na nagaganap ngayon sa Amerika. Your thoughts?
It makes me angry. Less now. When it first came out, I remember it was at the height of it. I was also very stressed. I was uptight. I called my parents. They live in an area called Carson, which is predominantly Filipino, but there are still non-Filipinos there. And at this day and age, you never know. My mom likes to do her walking. She walks to the grocery. And I called them and I specifically said, stop doing that. Stop, right? So that's one. Number 2, I was at a department store. I went to go to Neiman Marcus and I found myself looking back, like looking over my shoulder to see if there's anyone. And that is so sad because we all deserve to be where we are. We are contributing to the society in so many ways, especially the Asians. And you know what else stood out to me was I was interviewing different people, some victims of Asian hate and some scholars that have been studying this, some activists that have been trying to fight this ever since it was the trendy thing to do, right? Even before the hashtags. And they said, before we were only dealing with slurs. And now it has become physical. And that's what we shouldn't do. You know, we shouldn't tolerate, because small things escalate to big things. If we allow people to do small things, even a slight like infraction, right? It's not to say that we're going to be angry and, oh, why did you say that? And all that stuff. But we need to be able to say something and correct people verbally.
So no matter the cost, exactly. No matter what, exactly. I mean, no matter what. You know, I was doing an interview with Troy Laureta. He's a young musical director, and he's extremely, extremely talented. On the day that I was doing an interview with him, he was a bit distraught. Sabi ko, Troy, what's happening? Yung pala, when on his way to the studio in LA, on the way to the studio, he was this guy who played the piano with Ariana Grande yes. in the Grammys. You know Troy, no?
I know Troy, yeah.
Really talented. You know, and I was doing that interview, and he had an experience of Asian hate that very moment I was doing the interview. And I thought it was really sad. It was really, I mean, to say the least, who has the right to treat anybody the way they're treating a lot of Asians and a lot of Blacks? Mm-hmm. You know, parang it's 2021. Mga kaibigan po sa mundo. But, you know, thank you for... have you done interviews with perpetrators? Have you tried?
No, I haven't. Some of the perpetrators, they're not even open to saying that they're perpetrators. But on the flip side of the coin, Kuya Boy, I also just want to make mention, because I had been on the other side. You know, being Filipina, born and raised in the Philippines, there are some nuances. There are some, what do you call that? Some perceptions that are injected. Like, you know, when I was in the Philippines, I'm half Chinese. When I was in the Philippines, my dad would always say, don't play outside. Don't stay out in the sun. You're going to get dark. We get that, right? We get that. I came out...
Cultural. It's a cultural thing.
Yes. And we may not have racism in the Philippines, but we certainly have colorism, right? So that's one thing. But also there are other things. I remember specifically when I was doing Kababayan and I was doing a makeup segment, talking to a makeup artist, and I said, but So how do we make our eyes look big? Because, as Asians, I use that term, which in the Philippines is normal. In fact, it's being used as nickname, as pet names for people.
That's right.
Guess what happened here? We received tons of letters complaining that I used a racial slur.
Wow. Okay.
That's also one of the things that I wanted to specify, that there are things that we don't know about. We need to be able to open to listening, right? That's one. But also at the same time, like for me, when I used that term, it wasn't in a bad light. We have to understand the words in context, right? Not just because, oh, you said a racial slur, that's so wrong, right? So really, Kuya Boy, especially here in the States, we deal with a lot. It's like sometimes it's like walking on eggshells. Or you can't say this word, you can't say this, you can't say it in this tone, you can't, like, it is quite tricky.
No, but I can relate to that. But also, again, talking to your audience, it's okay not to know certain things. But you have to listen and you have to understand the context. Walang iniwan yan, Jannelle, sa LGBT discourse, okay? To this very day, for example, some people would say homosexuals. Some people would, there are some pejorative terms which, are pejorative to us, but are okay to some government officials, for example. I was doing an interview and somebody just came up with, alam mo, boy, we have so much respect for the third sex. Loko. Sino po ang first at sino po ang second? I'm saying that, there is a time to begin to learn. So we have to be open. Lalo na ngayon, with a discourse on, let's say, the gender spectrum. I do not expect everybody to understand, the panromantics or the pansexuals or the non-binaries, etc. Pero kailangan marunong tayo makinig. Ako hanggang ngayon, Jannelle, I'm so excited. Like colorism, for example, is something new. I know that we don't have racism in the country, but hindi nangangahulugan that we do not call out colorism. Pag-usapan natin, halimbawa, anong ibig sabihin nun? So all I'm saying is, you're right, we should be open to learning from each other. I just want to go to Dad because I was reading your story. And yung mga bata, kailangan alam nila kung bakit inihatid ka halimbawa ng tatay mo sa eskwelahan, nag-aantay hanggang gabi, may mga klase ka, kumakain na lamang doon sa campus because that's the way it is. Our children must understand that expression of love from parents. And I know I'm sure you would have told your children, Lilly and Leo, this story is about Dad. And that's the difference. That's something that I am proud of. When I was telling your story, sabi ko, Pinoy na Pinoy. Di ba? Pinoy na Pinoy. How's Mom? How's Dad?
Mom and Dad are doing well. They're both now retired, enjoying the grandchildren, right? I remember when I was in the Philippines, even when I was starting my career there, it was my dad that cut out all the clippings. Every time I would come out, anong schedule mo? Anong schedule mo? And then he'll do a blast for his friends. Panoorin niyo naman yung anak ko. Parang ako yung, Dad, nakakahiya naman. And then yun na nga, my mom's contribution to all that is, she'll call me or she'll say, ano ba yung damit mo? Magbago ka na ng damit.
Love that. I really love that.
Parents being Filipino parents, and you're right, they're so Filipino.
But I like the scrutiny of parents. What is your true measure of success?
A true measure of success is when you still wake up feeling happy about life. There's a zest for life. And knowing that there will be problems, there will be disappointments, but you will come back because there will be joy, right? Joy and peace. I think that's the truest wealth in life.
For the longest time, to me, the true measure of success, I just thought about it now. Sabi ko, lahat pala ng panahon ko, lahat pala ng oras, all the years that I spent in my job has always been because I wanted to make Nanay proud. Siya talaga yung compass ko to this very day. This is the reason why I was so happy to hear you, talk about inculcating Filipino values on Lilly and Leo. Kasi hindi dahil sa Pinoy tayo, ito yung, hindi ko alam, pero proud na proud ako sa pagiging Pinoy sa ganun. Parati kong itinatanong yan, ano ba yung sasabihin ng nanay?
First of all, yes, Kuya Boy, I remember that and I know how very close you were to your nanay. I remember that I had to step in for you as host of TOFA for that year because you chose to stay with your nanay instead of flying to New York. And I also commend that. And that's a very, I think it's an Asian, but I would really say it's really super ultra so Filipino that we take care of our parents, right? And that's very special.
Iyak ako. I easily cry. I tear up. Really. Totoo yan. Tayo inaalagaan natin ang matatanda. Tayo tinatabihan natin sila. Ako, natutulog ako sa tabi ng nanay nung may sakit. Oh, that's very us. That's very us. And I want children to know this about us.
Yes, yes. And you know, with pride, I'm gonna share this with you. My Lily, she is growing up to be like that. Also, she's very sweet and very expressive. She'll say things out of the blue. She'll say, "Mommy, thank you so much for working so hard for us." She'll say, "You know, the other day we drove to Monterrey for Car Week, and then driving back, I drove by myself with the 2 kids. Imagine that, 6.5 hours, all right? With my daughter who's 5 and my son who's 2. Imagine how difficult that is." From the beginning, I said, "Lily, it's gonna be a long drive." And she said, "No, Mommy, it's okay, we can talk." I go, "No, you need to sleep." I go, "No, we'll talk." So she kept me company, and every time Leo would whine, she had like all the stuff on her lap, like the snacks, the bottle of milk, and she would offer to her brother, right? And then towards the last hour, she goes, "Mommy, Leo is already sleeping. Can I sleep now?" And I go, "Lily, you didn't have to stay, right? You know?" And then I said, closer to the house, I said, "I'm exhausted." And she goes, "Why, Mommy? Because of driving? I wish I could have drove, even though I don't know how." She goes, "Can you teach me how next time so I can help you?" And as a mom, and I know that your nanay appreciated that about you as well, like, you know, always being considered by your child. And you know, it also doesn't happen automatic. The children echo what they see in us. We give them time, we give them comfort, we're there for them. You know, when I'm in the car, I'm the type of mom who very rarely takes a phone call in the car when my children are there. I talk to them, I listen to the songs they want to listen to. I very rarely take a call. When I'm with them, I'm present.
In both life and work, Jannelle, what are you proudest of?
I'm most proud of being the mom that I'm trying to be, because I feel like in career will always be there. Advocacies will always be there. We can always take it up. The achievements that we have, it will all go away. The only thing that I care about as a mom are my children. They are the legacy that I will leave behind in the world, how they will be citizens of the future. Whether I spend time with them or not, they will grow up. So now it's my choice. Do I spend time with them while they're growing up, or do I not? And it's fine either way. There are no right or wrong answers. But for me, I'm most proud of that I'm able to be the mom that my children need.
Bravo. Ako parati kong sinasabi, Jannelle, people will forget that I was once a host, I was once an artist manager, I was a high-profile PR man in this country. But if I would be remembered as a good son, I'm fine. Yun lang.
And you are, Kuya Boy. Your relationship with your mom, the way you took care of her is really, really admirable.
Now, congratulations are in order because you just celebrated your 7th wedding anniversary. You started to talk about how you're raising your children. How are you raising each other?
It's hard to, you're right, you're also raising each other as husband and wife. And the person that I fell in love with is not the same person 7 years later.
That's true.
He's not the same. And I know that I'm not the same either for him. And so, you know, I think there's no formula for marriage. There's no formula for raising each other. But I think what we need to do is forgiveness and understanding lang talaga.
At dasal.
At dasal. Which, forgiveness and understanding, he does a lot of. More him than me. But I pray naman. Maybe we pray equally.
Jannelle, I'm in a 37-year relationship. You really have to listen to each other. And I love your point about, accepting, embracing the truth that after 7 years, this is an evolving human being.
Right. Di ba nga, Kuya Boy, they say love is a decision? Kasi,
Yes. Oo.
kasi love has to, at one point, turn to a commitment. I love that, Kuya Boy. Congratulations also, 37 years.
How did we do it? I don't know.
How do you keep it burning?
I don't know. We just burn each other. No, I think, a lot of many things. What works for me may not work for you and for others, but you really have to pay attention. There was one thing, kanina, na I learned from you today. You have to be present as you raise your children. You have to be present. You have to be there. You have to listen to the music of the kids. That is there now, and that is important. That the power of being present. Kasi sumusunod na doon yung pagiging mindful, pagiging understanding, but you have to be there. You cannot be absent.
And physically, you can be there, but that's not being present, right?
I like the idea of, I seldom take my phone, when I'm driving with my kids, because I don't want to miss a word, of Lilly or of Leo. That's being present. That's being mindful. It's a difficult journey. It's walking on tightrope. It's a balancing act to a certain extent, but you can enjoy it because I love again your word, because you're committed to it. So you are committed to So Jannelle.
Yeah.
Diba? Pero Jannelle, sa So Jannelle, sino ang audience mo? And what is your most important message to that audience? Constantly, what is it that you want to tell your audience?
Really, my audience for So Jannelle, my primary audience are Filipinos and Filipino Americans. That's why, Kuya Boy, I'm needing help, to promote So Jannelle. Because when we talk of the stories that we feature, Kuya Boy, just to give you an idea, we feature stories of immigrant personalities from the Philippines. One performer from the Philippines, very successful, moved to LA, is now enjoying his life as a truck driver. There's an actress in the Philippines, left at the height of her career, moved to the States and became a hospice nurse. Right? These are the stories that won't necessarily make it to mainstream, but we need to know about. Because first, immigration, there's a lot of lessons to be learned from immigration, right? And there's a lot of tips that we can learn from each other. Number two, more than that, the Filipino spirit. The Filipino spirit, the Filipino resilience. It's something that I want to celebrate on So Jannelle. These are the kind of stories that with these stories, I want to share the message that we are a great people, but we also need to support each other.
Tama. We really need to help each other. We have to be kinder to each other. Now, I caught some of your episodes. I saw your Paco Arispacochaga episode. I enjoyed that. He is a friend of mine. And a couple of other episodes. And you're right. Huwag tayong maghilaan. Kasi we need to help each other. We need to say a nice line to each other. Hindi yung bolahan, but, when somebody deserves praise, let's get together. At iangat natin. Let's lift each other up. Diba? Ang layo ng mararating natin as a people. Diba? But congratulations for all that you do on So Jannelle as you celebrate your 4th anniversary. And congratulations on your life. 7 years with Lester, Mr. Lester Perkins.
Thank you, Kuya Boy. I've been through so much. I think it's just an affirmation of the fact that God has plans for us. And
you're listening. And you're listening to the plans. Yeah. And I want young people in America, I want young people around the world to realize this, that we Filipinos are a good people. Naniniwala talaga ako doon, Jannelle. And thank you again. Last questions. I always end my interviews with some last question. I'm not going to ask you for, whether it's sex or chocolates, or lights on or lights off. But you are at the entrance of heaven. You're at the pearly gates, and God is there. And He says, "My daughter Jannelle, welcome to heaven. But what was the best thing you did for me?" What would you say?
I raised my children knowing you and loving you and respecting you.
Jannelle, can you try writing your epitaph? How would it go?
I don't know. I haven't thought of that. Here lies Jannelle So Perkins, I guess. No. An advocate for her community, a wife, a daughter, and a mother.
Just complete the statement. I am Jannelle So, and
I know it's so cliche. I am Jannelle So. I am a child of God.
fantastic. Jannelle, maraming salamat.
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. And I can only wish you all the best that life can offer. God bless you. Thank you.
You made it so special. Thank you so much for making time. And I hope this is not the last. I hope to have more conversations, collaborations with you.
Can be the beginning of many conversations. Maraming salamat.
Thank you.
Thank you.